Hello, welcome back, everyone. This is Shauna Marai from ICF. We're so pleased to have you here with us this afternoon to talk about the Nationwide Homeowner Assistance Fund updates. Just a couple of quick reminders. If you have any technical issues related to Zoom, you can chat with us in the chat box. However, there are the ability for you to ask questions of the panelists in the Q&A box. We have some common questions we'll go through at the end that we have been working on over the last several weeks. We know you have some questions there. We're going to do those first, but if we have time at the end, we're certainly happy to take a couple of questions from the Q&A box. So go ahead and pop those in as you think of them. And as you know from the other sessions, we have already posted the slides for this session on the Hud Exchange. And then later there will be the ability to look at the transcript and play the audio recording as well, just like a self-paced online training. So you can let your colleagues know that they can check back and do that for this half session. And we went ahead and dropped the link to those materials in the chat box. So just like any other HUD Office of Housing Counseling presentation, we know many of you are tracking your own attendance. Once attendance is checked in a week or so from now, you will be able to get your learner, go through your learner transcript and print out a certificate. Just give us some time to do that. So as I mentioned, I'm Shauna LaRue Marai. I work and direct our ICF team in terms of technical assistance and work with this client day to day. And I'm so pleased that we are here with so many different experts in the Homeowner Assistance Fund. We'll hear first from Patrick Orr from the U.S. Department of Treasury, and he's a policy advisor there. Then we're going to go toward the industry at large and hear from Greg Zagorski as well as Rosemarie Sabatino, and they are senior homeownership policy specialists at NCSHA, which is the National Council of State Housing Agencies, and has been a wonderful partner to this program, really building out a lot of resources and tracking where the HAF program is nationwide. Mark McCardle is going to touch on some Consumer Finance Protection Bureau resources. So really happy to have his participation in terms of consumer-facing resources for housing counselors. And then Rob Weber, who's a housing specialist in HUD's Office of Housing Counseling, will work with me on the common questions, as well as field a lot of your questions in the audience. So that said, I am so pleased to turn it over to the U.S. Treasury to kick us off and welcome Patrick Orr to do his presentation.
Thank you, Shauna, and thank you very much for the invitation for Treasury to come and speak about the Homeowner Assistance Fund. We are always welcome, and we always welcome invitations to speak about the fund and speak about how to help financially challenge homeowners across the country. So thank you again. We also acknowledge all of the housing counselors and your critical role in helping financially challenged homeowners. The partnership that you have with the HAF program and all of the programs across the country is very critical. So thank you for that as well. I will let the obligatory disclaimer hang out there for a second. Make sure I don't get in trouble with our Office of General Counsel. But I will be talking about and walking you through the background of the general background of the fund and how it began, how we evaluated programs and plans, and then where we are right now. So as you probably are well aware, the HAF program is part of the American Rescue Plan Act, and it provided almost $10 billion for the fund for states, territories, tribal governments, tribal entities, the District of Columbia, and Department of Hawaiian Homelands. The primary objective is to keep homeowners in their houses and to prevent overall mortgage delinquencies and defaults. But we also have a portion of the money that is associated with homeowners insurance, utility payments, and other specified purposes. Those are primarily designed to rehab, or make sure that homes are habitable. Under the guidance, we have eligible homeowner, the eligibility for homeowners was there was a financial hardship associated with COVID after January 21st, 2020. The rules in which that was determined or pushed down to the individual states, territories, and tribes in their plans, but the general guidance is that it had to be associated with the pandemic. And Treasury allowed a lot of freedom with individual states, state plans, individual plans to make sure that as many people that were possibly impacted would be eligible for the program. One other key component was, and this is just to make sure that monies were sent out equitably, that income had to be equal to or less than 100%, 150% of the area median income, or 100% of the median income of the United States, whichever was greater. Those were key components that we looked at when we evaluated plans. And then there were two other major components that we looked at, which was an attestation that the homeowners actually had this financial hardship. How that was collected or how that was determined, the Treasury allowed individual programs to make that determination. We evaluated them when we evaluated their plans, but in most cases, if the homeowner could associate their financial trouble with job loss, reduction of income, or any other costs related to healthcare or what have you, they would be deemed as eligible. Two other components of that. Obviously, this needed to be the primary residence, and this is different, obviously, than the rental program. These are deemed to be homeowners and their primary residence. And the mortgage types that were eligible: first mortgages, seconds, reverse, manufactured housing, and contracts for deed, which was impacted or does impact tribal lands quite frequently. So qualified expenses. Once the plans were created and submitted to us, we evaluated to make sure that the expenses that were related to a homeowner fit into one of four broad categories. One was mortgage assistance. Obviously, that was either to bring the mortgage current, to help them with future payments, and then also doing mods or any loss mitigation to try to help them attain a mortgage payment that is attainable for them. Other payment assistance, as I stated before, HOA fees, utilities, internet, insurance, anything to keep the homeowner in the house or prevent displacement. And then other measures for displacement in terms of being able to have a clear title to their property and anything that may impact the overall living conditions of the house. And then lastly, counseling and legal services. So there was a rigorous process that took place during the overall development of the Treasury plan, which included statistical analysis and assessment of which states and which territories and how much the states were going to receive. I won't get into the details of that, but essentially they went through a process to determine how much of the allocation would be given to each one of either the states, territories, or tribes. And then lastly, regarding the overall structure of the program, this is really procedural. What we required of the states, tribes, and territories was notification or request for the funds. Obviously, we have approved all of 50 states, including DC, and all of the territories that have submitted. Not all territories have submitted plans, but all the territories that have submitted plans have been approved to get the funding and to receive the initial 10%, which was designed to provide them with funds to either start up their program and or run a pilot program. They needed to ask for a notice of request for funds, an initial payment. And then once they did, they had to submit their plan. Once the plan was approved, we provided overall general guidance, and the plans have been published. If you go to our website under USTreasury.gov, there's a HAF program page. Under that page, you will see all the plans posted for states and DC and Puerto Rico. So there's a two-step process. One step is the organization of the Treasury HAF team, which there are a whopping 3 of us on this team. Me and 2 of my colleagues, led by Will Corbett, is our director. So we reviewed the process, design of each one of the plans. We provided feedback. There was a back and forth, and then there was an official approval. Then there was funding, as I stated before. Many of the states and tribes and territories received 10%. And with that 10%, they were able to start up their program. And then we had a final review of the plans. We also are going through continuous iterations and reviews of plans and reviews of programs. So we are doing outreach. We talk to plan administrators. We get feedback regarding interaction with servicers. We get feedback regarding interaction with housing counselors. And we try to highlight areas that are going well. We have promising practices, and any areas where we find that there's challenges, we follow up, and we follow up through multiple channels and paths. So there are 4 key policy priorities. One, obviously, we wanted to make sure that that all of the funding that went down to states, tribes, and territories was disseminated out to financially challenged homeowners equitably. And so there was a focus on socially disadvantaged individuals, making sure that there was outreach and marketing to all communities. There was, and there continues to be, a focus on reducing barriers and access to the target populations. And that means that we are well aware that not everyone has internet access, or not everyone has the ability to provide all documents in a digital form. So we are encouraging states and tribes and territories to make sure that there are ways for people to either submit by paper or have assistance in submitting, either with a third party that can submit on their behalf, or that they can, in some cases, go through housing counselors and submit in that way from a third party perspective. The goal, obviously, is not just to bring a person current in their mortgage, but to make sure that for the long term, that this person that was challenged financially is able to have a positive long-term financial health. So we are working on that and making sure that programs are evaluating that. And then lastly, we are well aware that utility costs are high and skyrocketing across the country. So we're encouraging programs and making sure that programs have a utility program within their overall HAF plan. So that's just a general overview of how we got here and where we are. And from there, I will turn it over to, I believe, Greg.
Thank you, Patrick. It's been great working with you and your colleagues and your small little team on this program. We really do appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Thank you to HUD for the opportunity to speak to housing counselors on the Homeowner Assistance Fund. Me and my colleague, Rosemary Sabatino, will be speaking to you about NCSHA and our efforts. Next slide, please. Just a quick introduction. For those who don't know, the National Council of State Housing Agencies were a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that are created by the nation's state housing finance agencies, or HFAs. We represent the HFAs for all 50 states, as well as DC, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and New York City. Probably this crowd is familiar with HFAs, though I have found sometimes people are familiar more with their HFAs than HFAs in general. But just in case you're wondering, they're state chartered authorities established to help meet the affordable housing needs of the residents of their states. They administer a wide range of affordable housing and community development programs in all but a couple states. They are the ones who issue the low-income housing tax credit. They issue multifamily and single-family mortgage revenue bonds. They must all have affordable home ownership lending programs, and in a majority of states, they create as a state home PJs, just to give you some examples. And the reason that we're in this particular session is just looking at the state and territorial HAF programs, or the 56 state and territory programs, 42 are administered in the state by the Housing Finance Agency, so 3/4. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go over a little bit of some kind of aggregate data on what state HAF programs are doing. This is based on a survey the NCSHA conducted, as well as an extensive review we've done of states' HAF term sheets, which you can find on Treasury's website. Some of you all may have seen this part of the presentation before. We have spoken to HUD housing counselors before, and also at a neighbor work session that some of you may have attended. I will note, though, that some of this data has been updated to reflect plan changes from states, and also some more extensive review we conducted at NCSHA. But as you know, Patrick got a little into what type of mortgages will be eligible for assistance under this program. And as you can see, states, not surprisingly, all offer assistance for first mortgages. That one blank is a state that didn't respond. 44 for assistance for reverse mortgages, 46 for second mortgages, 50 for loans secured by manufactured housing. So but the bulk of the states are offering assistance for all sorts of mortgage types. Next slide, please. So what type of assistance is offered? Well, nearly all the state and territory programs offer mortgage reinstatement assistance. Another 40, so pretty well both the states offer mortgage payment assistance. That's kind of forward assistance if a homeowner still can't make their payments because of COVID-related hardship. And there's a smaller amount. You see about 15 do mortgage principal reduction, and 10 right now are facilitating mortgage interest rate reductions. If you add this up, obviously this would be not equal. Some states obviously are offering multiple versions. Next slide, please. So Patrick went through the qualified expenses that were off ability for assistance. So it wasn't just mortgage payment assistance. There's also things like utilities, property taxes, and the like. And states had to determine, based on the needs in their markets, which ones they were going to offer for their HAF programs. So this is obviously anything but mortgage. Mortgage assistance is obviously one that they're all offering. But after that, large majority of the states are offering help with property taxes, and a lot of more are offering assistance with HOA fees or liens. A majority, but around half, are offering assistance with homeowner utilities. The smaller ones are more homeowners, internet surface, and down payment assistance, assisted loans. Those are offered by a smaller amount of states. Next slide, please. So what form is the assistance taking? Now, some states are doing both, but the overall, the large majority are grants. In this case, just under 50. But there are some states, 10, that are offering it also as a forgivable loan that is recorded, and recapture repayment is possible if the homeowner sells their home before a certain time period, and some were other sources as well. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague Rosemary, who's going to go over some of the rest of the data, and also with some kind of tips for counselors working with the HAF program. Rosemary.
Thank you, Greg, and it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. As Greg went through his slides, I hope you were all processing that my state's HAF programs may not be the same as my neighboring state's HAF programs, and you would be 100% correct in that conclusion. This slide also furthers that. As you all know, both within your state, in fact, probably even within your city, the real estate and home prices are widely varied. And that's certainly the case across the country. And as you can see, the states, and we didn't call out which amount by state here, and that was purposeful, because we wanted to give you an idea nationally that there is a great deal of variation in terms of the maximum homeowner benefit. And I'm purposely calling it homeowner benefit versus mortgage assistance here. This is the total amount a homeowner might be able to receive under a given state's HAF program. You can see the cluster. The median amount is $35,000. I think the average is around $38,000, but there's clearly a cluster between 20 and 40, 41 of where most states are falling. Next slide, please. Okay, the other thing we wanted to make sure that you're aware of is that when the state submitted their budgets for how they were going to use HAF program funds to Treasury, 41 of them delineated specific budget amounts for counseling or educational services, and that amount totaled over 150 million. There also were 2/3 of the states also put in for legal services assistance in the specific line item included in the budgets that they submitted to Treasury. So there is money out there, and I hope this conveys to you that states are that view housing counseling and legal services as an important part of their HAF programs. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is actually an updated map from the last time Greg and I had the pleasure of speaking before you all. And it's different, I hope you see, because most programs are open. Unfortunately, some have also closed and some have also suspended a little bit in that states, if they have received a humongous number of applications and fear they may not have enough funds for everybody in the pipeline who has submitted, they've begun taking, or a number of them have begun taking wait lists. So even Colorado, if you go to their website, they still say that they're in pilot phase, but they are actively accepting applications. And at this time, I don't have any additional information about Utah. But we do keep this map updated pretty much in real time when we become aware of a change. And so please feel free to consult it if you are interested in a specific state. It links directly if you, and there are 3 different ways to do this, but I usually just myself use the map, click on the state, and I'm immediately taken to that state's site. If you also visit NCSHA's website, you will find that below the map, we have a section of program dashboards where 20+ states have put some of their progress applications, everything that they are capturing and that they are providing, many of which are updating that information on at least a weekly basis, and a number of them are almost like real time. So there is a lot of information there on our website for you. Next slide, please. Okay, so in your important role and in your experience in helping financially distressed homeowners, we wanted to offer some suggestions in terms of how to think about the HAF program in your state. Again, underscore, I probably should have bolded this one, but the programs really do vary. And so know the requirements and options for homeowners in your state. They do offer a mix of different assistance. I gave you the graph that showed the dots of the maximum assistance, but within any state's plan, sometimes they'll cap the amount that may be available for utilities, for example. And on the website that Patrick cited and provided the link to you for, it's very easy to find the state and get deep into the plans and the term sheets if you would like to do so. That site is a wealth of information. The other big role among many that you can play are to really help the homeowner understand the importance of submitting the paperwork. Whether it is completing the application, a number of states will time out an application after 30 days of required documents or additional information not being provided. And almost actually in every case, if a mortgage loan is involved or any other loan in particular, the homeowner is going to have to sign a third-party authorization. It's always going to be needed. And beyond that, there may be a couple of different TPAs that are needed. For example, you as a housing counseling agency may require a homeowner to sign one. Please help them understand that the faster they can get these documents to the application portal or to you, the faster the process will go for them. Also, since you guys are all going to become experts on the state program where you are helping homeowners, some states, as you saw from Greg's graph, do require a homeowner to sign a grant or in a very few cases, a loan agreement. Again, helping a homeowner understand what may be coming down the pike. And these are documents that as a counseling agency, you can get very easily. So get a hold of that. That way you can counsel the homeowner in advance of what they're going to see in that document. And then comes the not fun bullet point, but it's important to just acknowledge that you all are going to play an important role in helping manage expectations about the timing of assistance and the expectations around working with their servicer. And we all know everybody is working very hard, and I can say in full confidence, states and servicers are trying really hard to improve upon their timelines for helping homeowners. But there are a number of things at play. For example, it is possible that if a state were offering assistance for utilities and for property taxes that might not be escrowed, okay, then they might be waiting for information about what that homeowner owes to be reinstated before the state HAF program makes a determination of what amount is going to the mortgage payment. Why? Because the HAF program is probably trying to figure out the cap is here, and I want to make sure that the homeowner can be reinstated in some of these other obligations that actually could result in a lien before also helping with the mortgage. It's not exclusive, obviously, but they want to be able to then put as much money into that mortgage as is possible. So it does take time. And why does it take time? Well, most states in a non-escalation situation are pre-qualifying a homeowner first for their program to make sure that they income qualify, for example. Then they notify the servicer with the TPA. The servicer has now the permission to provide the amount and the indebtedness and the amount of missed mortgage payments and corporate advances, meaning payments that the servicer had to forward on behalf of the homeowner back to the HAF agency. And the rule of thumb here is that the servicers provide it back to the agency with a 30-day good through date. That's really important, okay? The homeowner then, if the program's a simple reinstatement, the program looks at the amount of money, maybe trying to collect some of this other information from some of the other obligations and payors that the homeowner has. And then they submit an approval of the amount of money to the servicer. And then they send the funds, they send a record of what those funds are to be used for, and then the funds get credited. The reason I talked about the 30-day good through date is because if any delay happens in there and that 30-day is beyond the point where the state is able to say to the mortgage servicer of money, then you all know every time the first of the month goes by, the homeowner owes another month's payment of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So it's a moving train as I think about it. So again, please be assured that everybody is trying to get and working very, very hard to try to expedite and get homeowners the assistance they need in as timely a manner as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, in your very important role as a trusted advisor, there are certain things that in talking to some of the agencies, servicers, and even national consumer advocacy groups that they thought would be all useful, kind of helpful hints to convey. One, as each program's a little different, know the actions under your state's programs and check in with your state if you haven't heard from them recently, because programs do evolve. We've seen it, Treasury's seen it as the needs as they're getting into the applications. The states really are critically evaluating their programs. The second thing you all could help with is helping homeowners understand the difference between needing a lower mortgage payment, because they cannot make that regular, or rather resume making their regular mortgage payment in wanting one. And the reason this is an important distinction is because the loss amid waterfalls, as you all well know, often mean if it's a loan mod, that homeowner could end up with a 30-year, additional term on their mortgage. And let's face it, if somebody's been paying for 15 years on their mortgage, that may not be the best thing for them if they really thought about it. Of course, it might be, right? That's why the options are there. But helping a homeowner distinguish in their own mind, in their own financial situation of really, do they need a lower mortgage payment? And they may very well need that. The other thing is the understanding, or helping the homeowner understand what may be available to them from their servicer and what the implications might be. What does it mean to have a partial claim, or if it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie loan, a deferred payment? What does it mean to get a loan mod with a 40-year amortization? And all of this, of course, is in the context of what other housing options might be for that family. And we all know what rents have been doing in pretty much across the country. So keeping people in their homes is really, really important for so many different reasons. The other thing too is, again, in this, where can delays happen? Helping homeowners who are going to take a loan mod understand, or a partial claim as well, understand that additional paperwork is forthcoming from their servicer, right? A loan mod is a change to a legal obligation. So they're going to have to sign the document. A partial claim, they will have to sign a note with that the servicer is going to provide to them with FHA, talking about the partial claim that is going to be then added to their obligation as a junior mortgage. So helping the homeowner understand that the faster, if they have questions, they come back to you so that they can sign those documents and return them to the servicer, the faster that homeowner can get the assistance credited to their account that they need. Last slide, please. And with that, we want to just provide you all with a huge thank you for all of the work that you're doing to help distressed homeowners who have been financially impacted by COVID-19. Thank you for your working with the agencies and working with servicers on behalf of those homeowners. And with that, it's my pleasure to hand the baton over to Mark McCardle, who is the Acting Chief of Assistant Director for Mortgage Markets at CFPB. And Mark, having previously been at Treasury as head of the Hardest Hit Fund program, is extremely experienced in the trials and tribulations of homeowners financially impacted and how to help them. And so, Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Rosemarie. Next slide. This is my dog Yoda, which I'll move over. The Bureau thinks this is a very important program that could be an important tool for homeowners as they explore their options after forbearance. There's still close to 500,000 folks in active forbearance, while millions have left forbearance already. Many who remain will have substantial delinquencies. HAF can be a valuable tool to get them current, and we want to use all our resources to make sure we facilitate that. The Bureau has posted a number of pages on our website that can be helpful. The first one on the top is a blog we published aimed at servicers that encourages them to use this program, make sure that their customer agents know about the program, make sure that they have the controls in place to stop foreclosure when they get an I-record. And we encourage you as counselors, when you run into problems with servicers, to contact the Bureau. We have a complaint function that will be useful for us to sort of track who's doing a good job and who isn't, especially on servicers. We have a very helpful page, the second link there, Get Homeowner Assistance Funds, that basically has some basic FAQs. It leverages the NCSHA page with the map, and it has a number of sort of general questions. It's part of our homeowner hub. So there's other resources there about avoiding foreclosure, about getting a mod, about what a deferral is, that could be very helpful. The third link there is an insert that you and anyone is available can use that sort of explains what the program is briefly at the highest possible level, but is translated in multiple languages. So that's with languages to the 8 languages, we translate everything. So we encourage you to use that. We have a number of resources that counselors and servicers can use in our digital toolkit, which is the next link. And finally, at the bottom, there is the link that we talked about to submit a complaint. On the Housing Hub, we also have a link to help find a counselor. So we want to make sure that when a consumer goes to our page or a counselor, they can find all the information they need. And the Bureau is here to help in any way we can make sure this program is successful. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Shauna.
Okay, thanks so much, Mark. And let me just underscore that the CFPB resources really are helpful to you as counselors. And the last link that Mark covered was really about servicers in terms of servicer complaints or feedback that CFPB wants to hear about. So thank you so much. So we do have common questions that the ICF team as technical assistance providers, we created a brief feedback form that 65 different housing counseling agencies responded to that we sent out through NCSHA, the National Housing Resource Center, and also the HUD Intermediary Coalition. So they were able to get a lot of really helpful responses. But we thought because there's so many different ways in which HAF is being administered across the states and also other entities such as territories, that we really wanted to distill 3 common questions and give you some of our best advice. And then from there, as time permits, we're gonna go to some of the helpful questions that you folks have asked in the Q&A box as well. So the first one that we're gonna cover, and I'm gonna welcome back all of the panelists and also Rob Weber as well. So the first question is about how can HAF program administrators leverage housing counseling agencies? And I'll start. HCAs, obviously they are a key part of HAF administrators' implementation plans. We've heard this in numerous states, going back to the last presentation that was done in March with Kentucky Housing Corporation sharing their model. Housing counseling was integrated into their model. HCAs, as we learned from Rosemarie, can take applications, they can process them or help process them. And also housing counseling agencies can also be funded through the program as well to deliver housing counseling resources. I'm going to invite Rob to say a couple more things, and we'll see what the other panelists would like to offer as well. Rob Weber.
Sure, thanks, John. Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think HAF administrators can utilize housing counseling agencies to help raise awareness about the HAF program in local communities. Housing counseling agencies are very good with outreach campaigns. They have partnerships. They are embedded in their community. They know their stakeholders. They have partnership organizations and so on. So I think HAF administrators should really seriously consider how housing counseling agencies can get the word out about the HAF program, you know, whether it be handing out flyers and posters at key locations, lobbies of service organizations, unemployment offices, things like that, social media. And also I think, you know, many HAF programs are doing this quite well, but maybe some have not taken this approach yet. But I would really encourage administrators to provide ongoing technical training specifically to HUD certified housing counselors on the HAF program, really dive into the eligibility criteria, the application process, and so on, and then have regular program updates as the program might be evolving. You know, because housing counseling agencies, you know, they really want to know what's the status of the funding, what are the common issues that the applications are having, you know, what errors on them, missing documents, things like that. What's the timeline or the turnaround time for an application? These are important things for housing counselors to be made aware of as the program changes. And because counselors are regularly getting these questions from the public who are coming through their door or calling their phone lines, I think things would run very smoothly with housing counselors and the HAF program and the clients, the homeowners that are applying for it. I think it would really increase the efficiency of the program to have that sort of ongoing technical assistance and communication.
Okay, thanks, Rob. I'm going to see if Patrick wants to weigh in terms of Treasury's commitment in terms of housing counseling agencies and how HAF administrators can leverage the agencies out there.
Yeah, so Treasury and what Rob mentioned about the evolution of program, Treasury encourages program and program administrators to look at their program and to change either their allocation amounts or their process or their overall structure of their programs. If they change their allocation amounts more than 10% per line item, they need to come to Treasury for approval. But in most cases, we will approve them, and we encourage them to change as their program evolves.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Patrick. Would anyone else like to weigh in on the first question about HAF administrators leveraging housing counseling agencies? Okay. So the second common question that we received from, again, this 65 different agencies responded is, what is the process for a client to be approved and then denied assistance? And when do delays occur? Like what might be those reasons? We heard a lot from Rosemary before, but maybe you could distill this into just a couple of, you know, key points, Rosemary, that you want them to know about, you know, the overall process, timeline, and when delays or seemingly delays would happen.
Sure. I'm actually going to take a step back and just talk a little bit about the process. Most states got out in front of, they got good information through their own research from Treasury on who the largest lenders were in their state that were the government loan, that had a government loan. And most states proactively reached out to those servicers to participate in their programs. Beyond that, though, there are literally hundreds of servicers that may be servicing mortgages in a state. And many times a state does not know that a servicer even has need to be involved in the HAF program until a homeowner, for the first time for that servicer, has submitted an application, and then the state realizes that this small or medium-sized lender needs to be brought into their program. And so assume that states reached out at the state level, but not necessarily every state did. So that's step number one, and that may slow things down. I referred to the importance of homeowners getting the documentation so that income determinations and financial hardship can be assessed. And then there is the back and forth between the state and the servicer, and that just sometimes takes some time. There is a tremendous amount of volume in the system now, and I say that because the system is everybody who touches the HAF program. I think some of you also might be experiencing larger volumes now that the program in your state or multiple states that you cover is up and running. And so beyond that, I'll just reiterate, making sure that the homeowner returns the document that they need if it's to the HAF program, because it's a grant agreement that'll hold up the approval of the amount. If that homeowner is doing a loan mod, making sure that particularly if they feel like they want to come back to you for some advice, that you work them into a schedule quickly, that you help expedite that homeowner understanding what that agreement means for them in their financial situation. And again, urging them to return the documents quickly. I'm emphasizing that just because those are things that you can help a homeowner understand, that this is not more red tape. These are parts of the process. But we also recognize that when there are multiple organizations touching any given application, that just adds time to it. So those are I think the words of wisdom and the insight that I can provide on that.
Okay, thank you for that, Rosemary. And there was a follow-up question just in general in the Q&A box about, just looking at trends in terms of processing times and things like that. And I know from our discussion before, Rosemary, like there isn't anything like that that's like tracking all of that across all these different HAF administrators. And we do recognize that you do need contacts in these states, and we're going to share a link at the end for some folks across at least 18 different states that you can touch base with, who are directly working with housing counseling agencies currently. Anyone else want to weigh in about question number 2 in terms of the process? Anything that Rosemary may not have touched on? Anything to add? Okay, hearing none. All right, our final question is, what is expected from a housing counselor when a client applies for HAF funds? And I'm going to have Rob touch on a couple of things and then see if others want to weigh in as well.
Sure. Well, obviously, housing counseling agencies who are specializing in that loss mitigation, foreclosure prevention counseling, they're really the ones that are best equipped to work with those HAF programs. And so they're expected to understand the eligibility criteria, the process of the application, and be able to counsel clients on that program so their clients can make the best informed decision on applying for that program. And additionally, counselors are expected to be able to communicate about what alternative relief options might be available if the HAF program doesn't fit for them, or if they could possibly combine a loss mitigation through their servicer with the HAF program. So understanding those options, those guidelines as well is going to be very important as well. In order to do these things, it's really important that counselors continue to attend trainings on the HAF programs, on loss mitigation programs, through their state, through the Office of Housing Counseling or its training partners. There's been a number of trainings offered through HUD and training partners. If trainings don't exist for their state's HAF program, because again, every state is a little bit different, encourage you to ask for it. Reach out to the state HAF administrator, because if you're actively counseling clients on that state HAF program as they come through the door, you should be seeking any and all training on that program that's available. So ask for it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rob. Anything to add to Rob's remarks?
Let me add one more thing. I mean, one place that the states are telling us where housing counseling is incredibly important is when somebody comes in, applies for HAF, and they are over the state's cap. So the amount needed to reinstate the mortgage cannot be done with HAF alone. And so knowing if there are other sources of money that you can bring to bear for that homeowner, or working with their budget to see, if the difference is a few $1,000s, like, is there some place that that homeowner might be able to find it within their budget or through some other third-party source that that's real value add to that family and can help them get to a yes with the HAF agency too.
Okay, thanks for that, Rosemary. And that was also somebody's question in the questions box. We haven't heard enough from Mark McCardle and what CFPB is doing. And so there were a couple of questions I know we saw on the Hoover board and also in the Q&A box about working with lenders and servicers in terms of accepting the HAF funds.
So we've reached out to a number of big servicers to make sure that they have the processes in place to handle this. Every lender we've talked to has said that they will accept these funds, and there are some states that have over 100 servicers on their roster. We just talked to Kentucky recently. I think they had 110, including small and large ones. So it seems like many of them are participating, but there's a difference between saying you're participating and how well you can do so. So that's really the next stage of our involvement, is to make sure that servicers are processing these files in a timely manner, are communicating well. I think it's important for consumers also to remain in contact with the servicer, even if they are going through the HAF process. So the servicer doesn't start a foreclosure process and add more fees and other costs to the consumer at the time when they might be getting assistance from another source. So this will be an ongoing thing where we're going to see to make sure servicers are adequately staffed to meet this demand. But most servicers want to accept these funds because, especially in a rising rate environment, these funds will make economic sense in most cases to bring a consumer current.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And I really think that that's really important that our audience members know how much work that is going on behind the scenes too. So we've also received a number of questions about wanting to have conversations with the HAF administrator and feeling like housing counseling agencies are not making any inroads. I will just say that you can certainly escalate the contacting with the leadership of the HAF administrator. You can market your services, just like Rob said, and make sure that they understand the gifts and expertise that certified housing counselors have in this space and have been working in this space for a number of years in terms of foreclosure and loss mitigation. So I think this is also your time to provide the array of services that you offer and get to the right folks in the organization who are making the decisions. That was one of the more common questions that I saw here. I would just ask Rob, in terms of the Q&A box, is there one more maybe we could answer before we go to some of our wrap-up closing pieces?
Sean, I can jump in. And there was a bunch of questions about funding. And just so everyone's clear and understands that the funding for the HAF program is part of a bill which comes with the overall allocation from Congress. So once the funding at the Treasury level is pushed down to the states, tribes, and territories, there really isn't money that comes in behind that Treasury can just reallocate. It has to be appropriated through Congress to increase the funding if there is going to be any other funding at the Treasury level. The Treasury Department is like the umbrella. So we are the umbrella agency that pushes the money down to the states, tribes, and territories, and from there it's disseminated out to the homeowners. There may, and there have been, as Rosemary highlighted, there are some states that have allocated all of their monies so far. It has not necessarily gone out to everyone, but they have received, in their estimation, enough applications that it would expend all of their funds. There is no backfilling or reappropriation from Treasury for their allocation. That, again, would have to come from Congress in an appropriation bill.
Okay, thank you for that. That was definitely a thread that we saw in the Q&A box. Rob, anything else that you're seeing that we should touch on in terms of HAF?
No, I don't think so. I think Patrick answered the most common one that's coming up. So
I can answer one in the chat if we have time really quickly.
I would say real quick, I don't want to lose our audience.
Oh,
We have a
sorry.
couple of really important websites to show to you. Go ahead.
Of course. Well, there was a question about do servicers have to participate in HAF? And they've said that they've heard that one has not told them. The answer is no, but every servicer, at least the large ones that we've heard from, and only example I've heard of a servicer not participating is a very, very small bank where it was personal with the borrower. So if you talk to someone who says the servicer is not participating, I would suggest, if you can, two things: talk to the state, because the state may be talking to other people, the state HAF program at the servicer, and also see if you can escalate, because sometimes servicers, frontline communication people, aren't as informed in HAF as we might hope they were. And sometimes we talk to someone else and they said, oh yeah, someone a little higher up, and they're like, yeah, of course we're participating in HAF. So those would be two steps I would suggest in those instances.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that, Greg. That's a good one. So I'm going to transition us back to, thank you so much to the panel and to providing your expertise on all these important topics. I just wanted to mention some of the other links here that we went over. Treasury's link is here, NCSHA's HAF website, and also in general CFPB. And then definitely take a look at all of Mark's detailed links that he provided, including providing feedback about servicers. And then the last link is actually to a new HUD Exchange page that is just for HAF that we will type into the chat box. There you will find information about some HAF contacts that are specifically for counselors and also those working legal services. So I know somebody had asked for contact in California. I was already able to respond to that person because we have this very helpful list. We're hoping that list grows over time. And so we are going to be partnering, continuing to partner with NCSHA to make sure that we continue to grow that list. And hopefully that's really helpful to you folks. And I also put into the chat box Mentimeter just a little bit ago. We really want your feedback about day one, and also are you going to join us in the future tomorrow. Want to see if you're going to be coming back or whether or not you're going to catch the recordings later. So we'll go ahead and show Mentimeter here for a sec. Thank you for the link, Allie, and show Mentimeter here for a second. That we really want to make sure that we get your feedback there. So okay, looks like we're getting some good feedback already. So we definitely want to hear from you. So with that, we'll go ahead and thank everyone, our panelists, all the prep that was done ahead of this session. And also, we're going to continue the conversation on HUVA. There is a specific board called HAF in my state or in states. So that's where we're having some conversations already. So please continue the conversation there. You can continue to ask questions. I've invited both Greg and Rosemarie to participate there, and Patrick Orr. So certainly just let us know what your thoughts are about HAF after the session. And hopefully we're able to answer some of your questions on HUVA throughout the week. So certainly make sure that you check back with us in terms of the event webpage. You can find HUD on the HUD Exchange at hudexchange.info/counseling. And you can always email HUD at housing.counseling@hud.gov if you would like to communicate directly with HUD. So tomorrow's sessions, we get started promptly at 12 o'clock. You don't want to miss. NCSHA is going to come back, as well as the National Housing Resource Center and the HUD Intermediary Coalition. They are the part of our welcome for day two. So we're really excited about that discussion. And then we have concurrent sessions or spotlights across HUD. There's going to be the PAVE initiative, which is the appraisal bias work that's been going on through FHEO. I will be doing the one on community planning and development programs. And there will also be a spotlight session on multifamily and public and Indian housing. Then we'll have another break, and then culturally sensitive and linguistically appropriate housing counseling is really going to be very robust, particularly after today's trends and data session. So can't wait for that discussion. And then finally, 2 sessions at the end of the day, one working with making a difference through minority serving institutions, and then separately housing counseling and the disaster recovery process. Again, offering you 2 different options for tomorrow late afternoon. And with that, thank you so much for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.